Wall in the fragment, microsystems acupuncture, self-resemblance and fractal theory, a way to East-West integration. Chinese medicine teaches that man must always respond to heaven and earth, and therefore represents a microcosm that responds to the laws of the macrocosm. In Chinese medicine, there are many microsystems related to the various structures and functions of the entire body, and each other interrelated. In the ear, there are points that correspond with the spine, the shoulder, hips, upper and lower extremities. In abdominal acupuncture, an homunculus is located with the vertebral column reflected along the anterior midline, the arm laterally to stomach 24 point, and the leg laterally to the stomach 26 point. In scalp acupuncture, there are various correspondence systems that connect the pericranial regions to the structures of the entire body. And the theory of 6 energy levels creates a system of connection between channels, organs, viscera, chronobiology of the whole body. By this system, space and time are related inside the man. In the observation of the tongue, various regions are related with the 3 sections of Sanjiao and with all the organs and viscera. And in the examination of the radial pulse, various regions of the pulse correspond to the 3 sections of the Sanjiao and to the respective organs and viscera. We see in this image some correspondences of the various regions of the radial pulse. How does this relationship between micro and macro system take place? It is a nervous phenomenon. It is ionic, hormonal, electric, biochemist, magnetic, quantum phenomenon. Western medicine teaches us that our genetic code inserted in the chromosomes that are present in all the cells of the human body is the development program of the whole organism. Each cell of our organism is a microsystem that contains the whole. To explore new hypotheses of interconnection between micro and macrosystems, we now analyze 4 interrelated concepts: the golden proportion, the Fibonacci sequence, the self-similarity, the fractal geometry. The first concept is that of the golden proportion. When in the 5th century before Christ, the Parthenon in Athens was built, Phidias established the proportion of the building following a rule that has always been adopted in architecture ever since. The rule of a golden section, golden proportion. The width of the Parthenon is equal to the height multiplied by 1.618. The height of the columns is equal to the height of the tympanum and the metopes multiplied by 1.618. But what is this number? What does 1.618 mean? It is an irrational number indicated with phi, because it is made up of an infinite numbers of digits. The golden section was defined for the first time by Euclid. It can be said that a straight line is divided according to the golden proportion when the entire line AB is related to the greater part AC, as well as the greater part AC is related to the smaller part CB. Let's now see another curiosity, that of the golden ratio in the sides of the pentagon in relation to its diagonals. Many structures in nature are related with the golden ratio. For example, we find it in the arrangement of the seeds of an apple. Even credit cards are golden rectangles. If we examine a human face defined beautiful, we can discover how some distances between the elements that compose it are in golden ratio. The ratio between the length of the hand and the forearm and the length of the entire arm is equal to 1.618. As you can see in this image, this golden proportion is applied to the hand, the arm, the foot, the legs, the entire body, the various sections of the face. And now we examine Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is a succession of numbers in which each number is the sum of the previous two. If we make the ratio between any number in the series and the previous one, we obtain a result that approaches more and more to phi, the number of the golden ratio, 1.618. The golden ratio can be developed in geometric terms, as we see in this image. And if we subtract from a golden rectangle a square with a side equal to the smaller side of the rectangle, the result is a small rectangle that is still golden, and always proceeding in the same way, smaller and smaller rectangles are formed. And in the golden spiral, we find the proportions corresponding to the number of the Fibonacci sequence. We find these elements once again in the anatomy of the body, as we see in this image. The ear perfectly draws a golden spiral. The closing of the fingers of the hand take place following the golden spiral. The DNA strands with themselves in a golden spiral. And in nature, the golden spiral is omnipresent, as we see in the nautilus shell, in the arrangement of the thorns of succulents, in the coils of the layers of an onion, and in the spiral structure of a tomato. The Fibonacci sequence is ubiquitous in nature. And now we examine the self-similarity. The self-similarity simply consists in the fact that a geometric object repeats itself in the structures in the same way on different scales, or, in simple words, it does not change its appearance even when viewed with a magnifying glass. This phenomenon happens in the arrangement of the petals of the rose, or in the corolla of this flower. And finally, we examine the fractal geometry. The logarithmic spiral of Fibonacci sequence and the phenomenon of the self-similarity introduce us to a new aspect of physics applied to natural phenomena that goes under the name of a fractal geometry. A geometry is fractal when the same structure defined by an algorithm reproduces itself similar to itself with a self-similarity mechanism in even smaller dimension like happens in Roman broccoli. The quality of self-similarity is independent of size or scale. The self-similarity is mathematically infinite in principle, but the real size of the smallest figure is necessarily limited by the size of the atom. Recently, the principle of fractalization, that is a self-similarity, has been recognized as the basic principle of nature's self-organization. This pattern can be seen in the division of the veins of a leaf. This pattern can be seen in the branching of a tree. The principle of fractalization is observed in the bronchial division of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and additional levels. The principle of fractalization affects the subdivision of arterial, venous, lymphatic vessels and the entire nervous vascular trunk. It also occurs in the branching of blood vessels and nerves in intestinal villi and microvilli. And in addition to structural fractals, functional fractals exist in organisms. There are very current studies regarding the fractal structures of DNA and the influence that this structure would have on the global function of the genome. In short, attention is shifting from the discourse of the sequence content to that of the form position in the space. The assumption by the genes of the spacer of one spatial position rather than another, and as a result of a variation of the geometric shape, seem to influence the functionality of the entire genome. We could speak of a constellation of chromosomes whose spatial organization acts as a regulator of the genome itself. And its 3D image appears to be a magnifying fractals. Mathematically, it is an Hilbert curve, also known as a space-filling curve that can fill a two-dimensional space without ever overlapping, and then follow an identical movement in 3 dimensions. Another example of an Hilbert curve. We can use fractal geometry to study and demonstrate how the entire human organism, through an algorithmic mechanism, reproduces itself similar to itself with a mechanism of self-similarity in even smaller and microscopic dimensions that always reproduce the whole. Many attempts have been made to explain the nature of the classical acupuncture meridians, and there are many theories, none of which fully explain the acupuncture meridians. A more recently interpretation is the fractal field model of the organism structure, which describes meridians as the final wave cycle in the current field of an organism with the projection of the body surface at the level of acupuncture points. In this hypothesis, the acupuncture channels would be wave formations that transmit informations about the internal environment of an organism and facilitate the exchange of these informations with the external environment through the acupuncture points. The meridian system will be an informative cast of the human body at the level of the waves. And in addition, according to the principle of fractalization, an organism creates many quantum copies of itself with projection on the skin, mucous membranes, and the biological reason for these multiple copies is to create a larger duration reserve for the information structure. The body encodes its anatomical structure, the structure and functions of its internal organs and system, and the development of the organism in space and time. A feature of modern acupuncture is the rapid development of the doctrine of so-called microsystem united by a general property. Each is a projection of all parts of the body and its internal organs in a limited section of the body, as happens in the projection of the sensory and motor areas of our organism at the level of the cerebral cortex. The organs are reflected in the various areas of the microsystems, not only morphologically, but also and above functionally. It is impossible to explain such reverberation on such varied surfaces simply by means of neurohormonal connections. This is what happens in auricular acupuncture, in which a fetus is reflected within the various regions of the ear. The ancient tongue acupuncture technique exploits an additional system of correspondences between upper and lower limbs, hand and foot, trunk and cephalic extremity to treat with the remote correspondence system. And the same happens with the TAN method, which exploits the theory of energy channels and their correspondences with the 8 trigram system to couple organs, channels and tissues in a complex system of energy reverberation. Can we use fractal geometry to study and demonstrate how the entire human organism through an algorithmic mechanism reproduces itself similar to itself with a mechanism of self-similarity in even smaller and microscopic dimensions that always reproduce the whole? The Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded last year to 3 professors who demonstrated the presence of the phenomenon of quantistic entanglement. That is, the possibility that particles are able to influence each other instantly and independently of the distance that separates them. I think that fractal theory and entanglement mechanism are the challenge we will have to face in the coming years to find a new research path in acupuncture and Chinese medicine that can be able to find the best link between the ancient insights of Chinese medicine and the most recent discoveries in quantum mechanism. A journey of 1,000 li begins with the first step. This will be the first step in the new research path in acupuncture.